Hey guys, welcome back to some more AFK Arena. Today we're back over on the YouTube account and we're going to be breaking down the Wilder faction. Now this is going to go into a guide with Rakude and Arkman. Very in-depth guide of what heroes we're using, what heroes you need to be building within the faction, and also taking a look at the faction in the entirety. All right guys, so here we have the Wilders guide. So you'll notice that this in the primary ones in here are really broken down pretty well. So looking at relative strength, good. A lot of players kind of question why Tricia is still good, why Tricia is still being used. In here, she does have a decent amount of damage. She also has some energy regeneration, which is good. And that is the reason why when you look at the plus 20, the plus 30, they are both good. They are still a pretty good build, boosting up the attack that she provides. Now, looking at the 3 of 9 and the 9 of 9, 9 of 9, of course, grants her that extra feather, which is going to help her reach that max energy, making a big difference in how she does perform in there. 3 of 9, pretty good, like Nightmare Corridor, where it does kind of burst through. Now, we've seen her run a lot with the original version of Baden. Now, that is kind of out. Now, the big thing with her is the plus 30 signature item. So the plus 30 signature item is most important in the kit, buffs, and the version changes the normal attacks, which looking at the AoE damage won't exceed 10% of the max health. Damage taken by enemies hit will be at least equal to so much of the attack rating. Both effects are triggered every 4 seconds, which is pretty neat, and it does do a lot. The E30 in her is very strong, especially the Eclipse version, paired with Baden and all of the clones that trigger the effect. That is where the Tricia Baden combination does come into play, and we're also seeing her run. Now, you'll also notice the plus 60 in here, really, and it says bad. You could get some more stats out of there with the plus 60, but overall, not really important to get it and really building her up to that plus 60. And the same with the plus 40 signature item. Not really worth it. Again, the little bit of damage that it adds, not worth the investment. Then we get into the Awakened version of Lyca. Now, this, of course, is pretty unique. She is a relative strength, as we can see. Top tier hero in here. So looking at the 9 of 9 furniture, top tier looking at the plus 60 engraving and also the plus 40 signature item, top tier for all of those. Now she again is very unique and an excellent unit with a lot of utility based on the ability to shield the front units if she's in the back and having the delay coming into the battle, also increasing some physical pierce, some magical pierce, so allowing teams that already do a considerable amount of damage to do a lot more damage, increase magic efficiency, accuracy in there, which is very strong when you start looking at a lot of different game modes. And a high investment with the Awakened Heroes is required when we look at a 30960. So having that plus 30 signature item, 9 of 9 furniture, and a 60 engraving, that is kind of the benchmark for the Awakened Heroes to unlock all of the skills and abilities that they have. Now, when she comes into battle, again, providing that Starlight Protector in there makes a really big difference when you go from a 30 to a 60, which is why the 60 is a top tier. Adding in allies' accuracy and magic efficiency, depending on the class, and also reducing the enemy's dodge and magic suppression allows the heroes to do a lot more damage. Now, getting into Atheus, this is another one. When you look at a tank, absolutely top tier in the tier list, still very high. Provides a crazy amount of crowd control, very resilient, can take an incredible amount of damage, doesn't get bursted down, also is a strong buffer, also does provide an incredible amount of crowd control. When you stack some collections on there, when you start getting the insight, it does work very well. The plus 30 signature item on here makes the enemies into that cage, which can amplify the damage you're doing with regular attacks based on building up that signature item. Can be impactful, and that's a reason why even looking at a plus 40 still falls into the very good level. And then the 30 and the 60 both are good. Again, allowing him to really cage a bunch of heroes together and doing and maximizing the damage in there. It works incredibly well. He is probably one of the best tanks that we have seen in AFK Arena for an extended amount of time. Doesn't have the issues with survivability, doesn't just fold over, which again makes a really big difference in here with how incredibly well he does. Then we get into Misha. This is a hero that a lot of players right off the bat didn't think would have a lot of utility. And for her to have the utility or to be exceptionally well, you have to stack a lot of defense. The defense collection and building out the defense collection is super important. She deals literally no damage, which is kind of interesting in formations. The upside is the exchange is absolutely massive when it comes to her. since she buffs and since it is based on defense, defense can go very, very high, allowing for great control and debuffing on the heroes. Also, the ability to extend the battle, extremely powerful in formations, makes her an absolute priority. Looking at the plus 30 signature item, good. And then looking at the 9 of 9 furniture, which is the top tier, makes the illusion can recreate every 8 seconds instead of 12 seconds, which with the cooldown, you can have this up a lot faster. And of course, the paralyze and the energy drain more frequently. So you're cutting the buff literally almost in half. Helps the team survive with the E60, and stopping the battle time more frequently is an absolute must. This is why she has so much utility. And then even looking at a 30, a 60, and then the plus 40 signature item are all very good. Not falling in the top tier, but still very good when you start thinking of the cheat death in there. To allies, anything that provides a cheat death in a multitude of game modes, really, really important to build out the collection and having the defense. Then we look at the awakened version of Eironn. This, of course, absolutely top tier in here. Very good across the board, not hitting any of those top tier. But overall, we started seeing him, and he's being used in a lot of other places. Nightmare Corridor, because he's not really burst, he's a lot more crowd control with damage, consistent, constant damage over time. The burst damage isn't there with Eironn, which is the reason not really seeing him in that game mode. If he did have more burst damage, we would see him right in that top SSS tier. And again, with the Awakened Heroes, building them out to the 30960 are absolutely required when you're building them out. Now, when we start thinking of the hero itself, going in there and granting energy, being able to crowd control entire formations while exploding the enemy is kind of crazy, because he does do quite a bit of damage, and they lose 50% of the current energy. So not only do you have a hero that is doing damage, that is providing a lot of crowd control, that is also a massive energy disintegration hero, which is very cool to see. Now, the engraving, when you look at a 30 and a 60, the cold snap that he possesses actually stacks. And then when you look at a 60, uniquely enough, it is Dragon Speak damage. Now, this damage, not only having the crowd control, knocking the enemies back, doing some stunning, also going to provide Dragon Speak damage on top of the regular damage, which is kind of crazy. It's interesting to see that even looking at this faction in the entirety, that we're only sitting on 5 Wilders really that need to be built. So when we start looking bigger picture and looking at the rest of the Wilders in the factions, or as they consider them here, the older heroes, you can see that a lot of these, even bad, a couple very bad, these are some of the original heroes where, again, when you start thinking of meta formations, when you start thinking of heroes that do have utility, right here, Lorzen does still have average. Same with Lyca. We are still seeing them in a few kind of niche formations. Lorzen, of course, for that linking ability he possesses. Looking at Lyca with the awe ability in here, it still does pretty well within formations. Fundamentally, still working as intended, because again, she's unique in how she does everything in here. So bad, very bad. Again, kind of a niche formation, possibly looking at Namora. And then we look at average, even down here, kind of good in a few little parts. But overall, these are the heroes. And some of these, when you start looking at, some of them, when you start getting to 2 teams within the Wilder Tower, or even 3 teams in the Wilder Tower, you're going to be required to have 15 Wilders, not just the 5 we looked at. Meaning ones like Tamara still does incredibly well. Even right here, the Awakened version of Solus is now an average. Now, this was the first iteration of the Wilders and the first iteration of the Awakened hero, which was the Awakened version of Solus. So since the Maulers, since it was 2 years ago, which is kind of crazy, since they did the guides, it's pretty impressive to see. And unfortunately, he did make a post over on Reddit that was talking about the regular 4 faction heroes, how we're not seeing really a lot of utility or a lot of really utilization for the heroes itself, making the Celestials and the Hypos more of the very common heroes that we're seeing, with the Awakened heroes and the Draconic heroes, which are the primary heroes that players are looking to get. It's a very interesting kind of dynamic in there with exactly how it is built. All right, guys, so that is going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And as always, thank you guys for watching.